right, guys, it is the afternoon. Let's go into some stories. There's a hot one popping off right now. They're just hot off the presses. I'm going to mention it a little later, but we want to touch on it. Biden's doctor, the official MD that did his physical every year, that signed off on his health, has now pled the fifth. Yeah, that means that they don't want to self-incriminate. So when I say I plead the fifth, that means that I don't want to say something that is literally going to self-incriminate me and send me to prison. So the doctor has legitimately fessed up. What's now going to probably happen is they're going to give this doctor immunity to testify on who pressured the doctor to sign off on Biden's well checks, to say that, yeah, he's cognitively all there and he can actually run the greatest country in the world, which we all know was a lie. The moment the doctor then can testify saying that, well, in 2020, he wasn't cognitively capable. 2021, he wasn't cognitively capable. We will now begin to understand when that cutoff was. A lot of us say it was a long time ago, before 2020, but regardless, whenever that time comes for when the doctor was checking in on Biden and signing off on the paperwork, that will be the date that they can definitively say, from that day forward, everything that Biden has done is now illegitimate because he was at that point a potato. Boom! Fantastic news, I know. Let's look at another potato head, this one on the Supreme Court. Ketanji Brown Jackson does what she does best, shows that she is a complete and utter moron. Yes, she is. So, Supreme Court basically said, yes, Trump can fire people. Again, I know I've harped on this on other ones, but there are three branches of government, guys. There's a legislative that makes the laws, the executive that execute or performs out or works through those laws and efficates them. Then there's the judiciary branch that evaluates were those laws constitutional. That's how it works. So in the process that Trump is going through and executing on some of these laws, be it the budget or whatnot, he can determine how best to effecate them. It's his prerogative. He's the executive. And the Supreme Court just wrote down a huge smackdown on all these district court judges saying, oh, you can't fire people. No, he can, because he is the executive. He's the big boss. The legislative sign off on the budget. The executive, they're the ones that execute on it and determine how things get operated. Having said that, one thing to note, where do all these agents roll up to? Yeah, the executive branch. So he is the boss of these agencies. He gets to determine who gets fired and who doesn't. Not a district court judge, not SCOTUS, not the legislative. Trump. God, why is this so hard for people? All right. Supreme Court clears the way for massive federal layoffs. This ruling lifts the lower court, district court, halting Trump's planned firings and restructuring of federal agencies. Supreme Court yesterday lifted an order that prevented the Trump administration from carrying out job cuts en masse and restructuring the federal agencies. Good on you. U.S. District Court Susan Ilston's May 22nd order that temporarily stopped large-scale layoffs known as reductions in force from moving forward while the litigation continues in lower courts. The AFG, or the American Federation of Government Employees, which is a huge government union, which is a POS, you shouldn't have government unions, has said the planned organization of the federal government will lead to hundreds of thousands of federal employees losing their jobs. I don't care. District Court blocked the government's actions based on the lower court's view that President Donald Trump's Executive Order 14210 and a memorandum issued by the Office of Management and Budget were unlawful. They did not cite why it was unlawful. They basically whined about it, saying that you're laying a bunch of these people off and we don't like it. KJ dissented from the order, which she called not only truly unfortunate, but also hubristic and senseless. That makes no sense. Jackson said there was no basis to conclude that the district court erred in its finding that the president is attempting to fundamentally restructure the federal government. And lower court judges have their fingers on the pulse of what is happening on the ground and are indisputably best positioned to determine the relevant facts, including those that underlie fair assessments of the merits, harms, and equities. Love that E word. The president cannot... so that's KJ's opinion. Sotomayor, another DEI left-brain nitwit, had to come out and write the affirming decision by the Supreme Court, which basically called out KJ for being so left-wing nut job that even her Marxist compatriot had to say, hey, look, you're looking a little stupid. Let's tone it down a little bit. So this is from Sotomayor. Although the president cannot restructure federal agencies in a manner inconsistent with congressional mandates. Executive Order 14210 requires agencies to plan reorganizations and reductions in force consistent with applicable law, and the memorandum reiterates as much. So what she's saying is that they can restructure it as long as it's within the bounds of the law. In other words, again, he can restructure the Department of Education however he wants to. He cannot get rid of it because under the law, the DOE still exists and it requires Congress to say no more DOE, but Trump can restructure how it works. That's how it's doing. He's determining how it's run. Get over it, KJ. Shove your head. Okay, we'll move on. Supreme Court Solicitor General John Sauer said the district court's nationwide injunction barred nearly the entire executive branch, 19 agencies, 11 cabinet departments, from implementing an executive order that directs agencies to prepare plans to execute lawful reductions in size of the federal workforce. The injunction is based on indefensible premise that the president must secure explicit statutory authorization from Congress to exercise his core Article 2 authority to superintend the internal personal decisions of the executive branch. Basically saying you can't micromanage the president, that ain't your job. The district court's order violates these bedrock principles and other well-established doctrines for over 200 years. Yep. The government union gave examples of how many employees we fired at certain agencies as a result of reduction in force efforts. Boo-hoo, cry me a river. Get over it. You don't like it. You can't sue to keep your job. You lose your job. It's how it is. I don't get to sue to keep my job. You shouldn't either. Government unions should not exist. The VA plans to end 80,000 positions. Department of Department of Energy, not Department of Education in this case, and the General Service Administration both intend to fire about half their workforce, and Department of Health and Services plans to cut at least 10,000. Department of Treasury plans to eliminate at least 40% of the positions at the IRS, while the Small Business Administration is on track to reduce its workforce by 43%. Good job. Finally, some good job out of this administration. I know there's other things that he's done well, but this is really good given the Epstein flop right now. I mean, Trump has taken a beating. We'll get into that for a moment. Another great thing, Trump has come out and done an executive order that says churches can endorse political candidates without losing tax status. This goes all back to the racist president, LBJ. IRS made it clear its stance on churches endorsing political candidates in front of their congregations, saying in a court filing on Monday that houses of worship are free to push political candidates from the pulpit without fear of losing their tax-exempt status. The IRS, the Johnson Amendment, which was part of the U.S. tax code since 1954, does not prohibit a church from communicating with its congregates about its preferred political candidates, comparing such endorsements to a family discussion concerning candidates. Senator LBJ put this in back in 1954, before, of course, he was president, and a horrible one at that. Trump had previously stated in his first term, I will get rid and totally destroy the Johnson Amendment and allow our representatives of faith to speak freely and without fear of retribution. This goes back to the point between what Trump can do, what Trump cannot do. It requires the legislature to kill the law, but Trump can determine how to effecate that law. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody can't sue and take it to court, to the Supreme Court, and say, hey, he's not actually doing it in this law. He needs to at least, be putting on the books. He needs to be doing something about it. But for now, Trump has an executive order saying that you have to ignore when a pastor or priest comes out and says, hey, because those leftoids are killing babies and because they don't know what a man and woman are, you shouldn't vote for them. This is a huge win for Christians and Jews and Muslims to come out and say, look, that nut job over there worships the devil. We don't need to vote for him. I think that's pretty good. Trump hosts Bibi at White House. So Netanyahu's over here. He's wanting to say hello, and it's very interesting timing regarding the Epstein piece. We're going to put on our tinfoil hats and talk about that in just one moment. So Bibi came to the White House on the evening of July 7th for a dinner focusing on achieving permanent peace with Iran, securing a Gaza ceasefire, and expanding the Abraham Accords. All sounds good, right? U.S. President for the Peace Prize telling him it was well-deserved regarding the Nobel nomination from Bibi. So Bibi officially nominated Trump again. Trump's been nominated like multiple times in his first term and now his second term for the Nobel Peace Prize. And what dumbass president got it that didn't do anything? Oh, yeah, it was just because of his race. Yeah, isn't that great? He didn't actually do anything. He bombed a lot of brown people and Americans, though. The latest U.S. brokered ceasefire proposal backed by Israel was recently submitted to Hamas by mediators, but the terrorist group has yet to accept it. Trump stating, I think we're close to a deal in Gaza, could have it this week. I think there's a good chance we will have a deal with Hamas during the week pertaining to quite a few of the hostages. Bibi was then asked about the relocation of Palestinians. It's called free choice. If people want to stay, they can stay. But if they want to leave, they should be able to leave. It shouldn't be a prison. He added that Israel is working closely with the U.S. to find countries willing to offer Palestinians a better future. So a couple of things on this as we get into our tinfoil hat conspiracy theories getting ready to go through on Epstein and Israel. And yes, some of you already know that. I'm going to get to it. It's very interesting. One thing to point out with the Palestinians, nobody wants the Palestinians. Nobody around wants the Palestinians because you want to talk about extreme Muslims, Islamists that are absolutely nutbag and want to kill people. Unfortunately, Palestinians happen to be a larger part of that 15% of the population that are okay with using terrorism for political violence and the means to an end. That's just the demographics and the way it works. That's why even Egypt, nobody around there wants a Palestinian because they're like, nah, man, they're crazy. Even by my standard here, they're like up here. I ain't wanting that. So a little bit of a problem. Okay, so we went over the Biden doc pleading the fifth. So let's get into our tinfoil hat theories. So why are the Epstein files gone? And the reason why this is important is this ties into Bibi now visiting the White House right now. These are the theories that are currently floating around. One of them is my own. And let's get into these four, going from least probable to most probable. One, it's gone. Like the files are gone. They're completely destroyed. They're not existing. This is unlikely. There must be some somewhere. There is no way that a treasure trove of that much data, of that much evidence, completely disappeared off the map. There must be remnants. There must be some sort of trail. You cannot get rid of that much evidence and there not be some sort of modicum of a little bit of it somewhere lying around where somebody photocopied, saved something, and there's enough to piece back enough. Where did it go? There's going to be a trail. It is unlikely the evidence is gone. There might be some of it that's been scrubbed. I'm not saying that some of it hadn't been bleached, but most of it is probably floating around somewhere. The question is it with the CIA? Is it with the Mossad? Is it with the FBI? Where is it? Number two, Trump is in on it. Mutually assured destruction. This is possible to unlikely. This has been what's going around with a lot of the independents. J.D. DeLay's on this. Totally like J.D. DeLay. He's got a clear head on it, and it's a perfectly viable explanation. Some of the people are in on it. There are definitely Republicans that are in on it. And if you've got both parties in a uniparty system playing around doing those horrible things, they're going to cover for each other. Mutually assured destruction. It is evil, it is disgusting, and they all need to burn in hell and go through the wood chipper first. I mean, what can you say? Until it comes out and we see verifiable proof, there's definitely Republicans on it. I doubt Trump's in on it. The reason being is because there's a history there where he has already been targeted. He is literally the most investigated person on the planet, and they would have leaked something, done something, produced any sort of information to showcase that Trump had done something. Having said that, again, MAD is still in effect. There is still where he may have something, he being Trump, on other people to prevent his own destruction. Is it possible? Yeah, but I don't think this is likely. Now, let's get into the more realistic ones. This is Tucker Carlson's theory. It is so bad, it is so awful as far as what the CIA or the Mossad, or both of them, allowed for Epstein and these elites to perpetrate, that it would destroy the fundamental fabric of the U.S. government. Like, I'm talking about the worst of the worst. Like, you're thinking graping, I'm thinking they did that plus torture, murder, mutilate children, babes, whatnot. And the CIA knew about it, the Mossad knew about it, and they let it happen. This is Tucker Carlson's theory. This is totally viable. The problem is, I think this goes against the main platform. And what I mean by that is you have to have no soul. So unless you are surrounding everyone around this who is purely satanic and literally hates God and hates God's creation and is okay with destroying the most innocent, the most beautiful of creation children, and being able to subject them to that, somebody's going to crack. Somebody has to have a glimmer of a soul and come out and say, no, this can't be true. At least I pray that somebody would see something and scream out, this is wrong, even if it cost them their life. I would. I can't allow children to go through that, and I would hope that somebody who has a glimmer of soul saw that would come out. I think the more realistic answer is mine. They're using it themselves. I believe when they got in there, Boyingo got in there, Patel got in there, Bondi got in there, Trump got in there, they're like, yeah, we're going to expose it. But then they saw what they had. And these people, again, they want to do things. They want their own power. They want to do stuff. And they're like, we've got them by the balls now. I don't agree with it. I don't like this. I would not do this. I would expose them. But I'm curious, is that's what is going on? Given the Epstein release just before Bibi visiting, it seems hardly a coincidence that the Mossad is definitely involved. Bibi's coming to visit. Trump is laying out the groundwork that, look, Bibi, we're not going to expose that Mossad. We're definitely operating with Epstein and allowing this to happen. And look, we're showing good faith that we're not going to expose it. Could that be in it? Yes, that goes back into they are using it on some level. That is my belief. And that kind of goes with Tucker's, that it would expose the Mossad. So you could kind of say this is kind of branch off of it. I think they're more likely just using it directly. I'm hoping that is not the case, that they are literally covering up for the Mossad to save Israel. That is just disgusting given what has probably happened. Having said that, throwing off the tinfoil hat and saying mouthy out.